Dante's Boxing Nation, what's going on, guys? Full circle, huh? According to the reports, now that Canelo Alvarez is reportedly negotiating with Demetrius Andrade, Gennady Golovkin, who's been begging for a third fight with Canelo Alvarez, he's now negotiating with Derevyanchenko. The same Derevyanchenko that both Canelo Alvarez and Gennady Golovkin vacated their IBF belt to avoid. Now, at least in Canelo's case, if he ends up fighting Demetrius Andrade next, that won't be looked at as him ducking Sergey. Now, if he pulls a Gennady Golovkin and does what Golovkin did, Golovkin, he gave up his belt to fight Vanes Manarosian. That was a complete duck. But like I said, Canelo Alvarez is in talks with Demetrius Andrade. But what I'm learning is with Canelo and Golovkin, you can't take those talks serious, because we've been hearing reports of them negotiating with all different kind of fighters and it never goes through. So we don't know how serious the talks are with Canelo and Demetrius Andrade until it's official, or until someone like Eddie Hearn or Oscar De La Hoya says, you know, we're close to finalizing the deal. But Golovkin has no reason to turn down the Sergey fight because it would be for a title. It'll be for the IBF belt. So there would be no reason for him to turn that fight down. Plus, if he can win a title without fighting the man that he's terrified of, which is Demetrius Andrade, that would be a no-brainer. That would seem to be a no-brainer, right? Because listen, guys, when it comes to Golovkin, we don't have to sugarcoat this. We know what time it is when it comes to Triple G. DAZN tried to make Golovkin fight Demetrius Andrade. Outside of Gennady Golovkin feeling he may lose to Demetrius Andrade, there was no reason for him to turn down that fight. You can't say he turned it down for money, because Golovkin ended up fighting Steve Rose for a fraction of what he would have made against Demetrius Andrade for a title shot. So it is impossible to logically justify Gennady Golovkin's actions. But I will say this though, this will be a step in the right direction if Golovkin does take the Derevyanchenko fight for a title. That makes all the sense in the world. That gives him a little bit more leverage if he were to beat Sergey and then try to fight Canelo next. Now keep in mind, Golovkin doesn't even want the winner, because I was about to say then he could fight the winner of Canelo and Andrade. But when Canelo was fighting Danny Jacobs, Golovkin had the nerve to say, even if Danny Jacobs beats Canelo, I want the Canelo fight. I don't want to fight Danny Jacobs. So one could assume that he would say the same thing in this situation. If Canelo does fight Demetrius Andrade and Andrade wins that fight, look for Golovkin to avoid Demetrius Andrade, just like he's been doing. So let's see what happens. Let's see how serious these talks are with Golovkin and Derevyanchenko. And by the way, the reason why I have this picture of Jim Lampley up right now, because I know Jim Lampley sure would be proud of Golovkin right now, wouldn't he? If he was still on the air calling fights. I'm being sarcastic, guys. Jim Lampley, he's the man that said that if Gennady Golovkin loses to Canelo in the rematch, his entire career will be considered a failure. And guys, what you guys have to understand is it doesn't matter if you think Golovkin won the fight or not, because first of all, if you're a Golovkin fan, you have to say that, especially if that kind of pressure was put on Golovkin to win the fight. The bottom line is, if Golovkin does get a third fight with Canelo Alvarez, just because Golovkin is top priority on that hope list, even above Canelo Alvarez, if Canelo doesn't knock out Golovkin, they're still going to say Golovkin was robbed. Because if they don't say that, then they have to admit that their favorite fighter on the hope list is a complete failure. As the Grand Wizard of the Decavs, Jim Lampley said. And you racist fans, you can fill up the comment section all you want. Pissed off and crying, slapping your damn knee, rolling on the ground. But no matter how mad you get, you should be mad at your boy Golovkin for letting your ass down. And like I always say, man, these type of fans, they love to fill up the comment section. But whenever I do my live show on YouTube, where these fans can call in, and I'm encouraging them to call in, I'm telling them I want them to call in so we could talk about what you guys are typing, they never want to call in. Even when I'm doing a live show, they'll still be doing little tight buys, posting stuff in the live comment section, but they don't want to call in because they don't want to be confronted with truth and embarrassed in front of everyone. They know they could say this kind of stuff amongst their friends, congregate with their friends, talking about how much they hate these black, calling the Charlo brothers bums, but yet they never call Rocky Fielding a bum. How does that even make sense, guys? On top of that, you calling the Charlo brothers a bum, or you calling Jamal Charlo a bum, but yet Canelo Alvarez, he gave up his belt to not fight Charlo. How many of you guys think Canelo would have gave up his belt if James Kirkland was his mandatory? If Liam Smith was his mandatory? If Rocky Fielding was his mandatory? How many people think he would have gave up his belt? I'm talking about if there were no bigger fight. We know for a fact Canelo would have not vacated his belt to avoid. So why give up your belt to a bum like Jamal Charlo? What kind of fans are these, man? They're not real boxing fans. They're not boxing fans at all. These are race fans is what they are. You're mad because some undefeated fighter is challenging the fighter that you actually like? You should want good fighters to challenge the fighter that you like. Win, lose, or draw. I mean, in every other sport, you want to see the best play against the best. But see, they don't mind when it's football or basketball because most of those guys that are playing are not their race. So it's not as personal when they're watching those sports. But when it comes to boxing, it's extremely personal. It's extremely tribal. And you know something that these fans, they always get misconstrued. They always think because we say we want to see the fight, that automatically means we're just saying Charlo or Demetrius Andrade is going to destroy Canelo. No, we're saying as a boxing fan, we want to see the best fights regardless who's going to win. Only these type of Canelo fans are the ones that do this. They don't even want to watch the fight if they think there's any chance that their guy's not going to win. Coming up with the most ridiculous excuses why you don't want Canelo to fight Charlo or Demetrius Andrade. Oh, they're bums. Look at how Charlo looked in his last performance. He didn't even look good. See, this is what I'm talking about, guys, when I say these guys, they don't think with logic, they think with emotion. And that's the reason why whenever they say something, they contradict themselves. When you say, oh, well, you know, Charlo or Andrade didn't look good in their last performance, so trying to suggest they don't deserve to fight Canelo. Do you know if we were going off of that logic, then that would mean 80% of the opponents that Canelo Alvarez faced, they didn't deserve to be in the ring with him. They should have never been in the ring with him because they were coming off of not just bad performances, but they were coming off of knockout losses, all type of L's. So why you never got upset with Canelo for taking these opponents? Why you never complained about that level of opposition and how bad they had looked in their previous fights? We know what time it is at the end of the day. So like I said before, you could say this type of ignorant stuff amongst your friends, whatever makes you feel better inside, it's up to you. But if you're gonna be dumb enough to keep coming to my channel, you're gonna keep getting the whole truth over here. So make sure you have a big ass box of Kleenex right next to you before you hit that play button. That's all I got for now, guys. I'm on to the next one.